Hi guys, welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be talking about another news story that came out on Friday, and that was the Competition and Markets Authority announcement regarding an investigation into the breaking of consumer protection laws by major UK house builders. This has been going on for a few years now, but basically on Friday the watchdog came out and named some of the companies that have been participating in, or who they believe have been participating in this kind of law breaking, and that's Persimmon, Barratt, Countryside, and Taylor Wimpey. Obviously, that was not taken well by their stocks. Obviously, they're some of the largest UK house builders, and they fell between 4.5% and 7% each on Friday because of this news. This is not a new development. It's been going on for years. Something I've dubbed the leaseholder saga. 3 years ago, Sajid Javid, in his position in the government, promised to ban the sale of new leasehold homes because of this abuse, but it never happened. This investigation is about a year old now. As I said, it's escalated because they've named the parties that they believe are most responsible. But lobbyists have been active on this issue for at least 5 years. It's been a long time coming. For the companies involved, they've all said they're going to participate with the investigation and will be actively helping the CMA. But obviously, that could change. We don't know what that actually means in reality. This practice stretches back more than a decade. Let me try and explain what they've been doing. So basically, the CMA is alleging that these house builders have been charging unnecessary ground rents on new builds. So in the UK, when you buy a leasehold property, you don't technically buy the property, you lease it for a very long fixed period of time, so normally 90 to 120 years. This means that historically annual ground rents were paid for the land that the property is on. Now these became very small in cost due to inflation and weren't really increased, realistically becoming nominal, until house builders realised they could increase those costs and bring in a new revenue stream. Now, the CMA is alleging that these house builders increased the costs of ground rents and built in clauses that doubled the ground rent every decade, or in some examples sooner, basically just to increase the amount of revenue coming in from ground rents. The estimate is that over 100,000 homes were sold with this kind of exploitative doubling contract. This has left people locked into homes and flats that they can't sell now because it's got such a heavy ground rent burden. There are also lots of other allegations mixed in. They're being accused of unnecessarily making new houses, leaseholds, just so they can charge this extra annual ground rent. It all works on the assumption that these house builders were inflating the ground rent cost, maybe increasing it from £100 to £500, and then saying it's going to double every 10 years, and possibly hiding that in the contract, not really making it obvious to purchasers. One of the other allegations is that not only was none of this well explained to buyers, but also that they were using aggressive sales policies in order to sell the flats, giving people really tight deadlines to purchase, all those kind of things, maybe just so they didn't look into those contracts too much. Apparently there were promises at the time when people bought their leaseholds that they would eventually be able to buy the freehold at a reasonable price, at a discounted price, which is how it's traditionally supposed to be. But when these leasehold owners have come to try and buy their freeholds, there are many examples where they've been given outlandish prices, sometimes 5 times the original quote they got when they first bought the leasehold. And also that in some cases they're being told they just can't buy it. Now, this is not actually coming from the house builders, this is coming from the third parties. So the way the house builders were doing this is they sold these ground rents onto institutions like pension funds and other third parties who need and are willing to pay for future guaranteed income. So unlike a stock, a bond, you know exactly what you're going to get every year. It's the £100 ground rent, £500, whatever, it doubles in 10 years. You know it's consistent. In a building of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 flats, that's quite a lot of income, especially when it doubles every decade. So yeah, effectively, these ground rents have, over the past decade, become an asset class of their own, where third parties were looking to buy them and hold on to them for that reason, because they're consistent income that grows with these doubling contracts. These third parties are also apparently now under investigation because of apparently them not allowing people to buy these buy the freeholds, or if they are, they're charging ridiculous prices. One of the things I saw was the original quote was in the thousands of pounds. When the person then went to buy it a few years later, it was over £10,000. That's the kind of exploitative activities that they're alleging was and could still be going on. There are also some examples of these of these third parties charging really large fees for any home improvements, even if they're tiny. So again, that lets them add a steady stream of income, but is incredibly exploitative for the homeowner. So it could be anything small. They were charging huge fees to do that. Some of these companies, the housing companies, have tried to right this problem already. So Taylor Wimpey set up an £130 million fund in 2017 to settle disputes regarding the freehold abuses. And they have ceased using doubling contracts. That might explain why Taylor Wimpey declined the lease on Friday, only 4.5%. The other companies have taken other steps, but they're not quite as far as Taylor Wimpey has gone. So they're probably the best one to look at if you're looking to buy in at this stage, after this small dip. It's something to say that there isn't clear guilt here. The CMA is not saying that these parties were completely guilty. They're just announcing that they're investigating it further and they'd like help from these companies. They need their cooperation to continue. And that could be done for a legal battle, or they could freely choose to participate. If they do end up in final guilt, they say these four companies and possibly others were guilty, that might end in legal action. There is some hesitance around this. I mean, one of the FT stories comes out with the quote, "Given the foot dragging to date, even these small share moves may be overreactions." And that's quite a cynical view. Obviously, this has been going on for a long time, 5 years, even to the point where people just don't think it's going to end up in a solution that hurts the house builders in any way. But it could. The article here from Building News website does say that the CMA could force changes if they don't see enough changes in these companies to remove these unethical and illegal practices. Now, obviously that would require the companies not changing themselves, whereas some of them have claimed that they have, so that's difficult to know whether or not that will happen. The CMA is also apparently, as I said, contacting other builders, so there could be further names to come out regarding this problem. So that might be something to look out for in other house building stocks. Which ones are most susceptible to this, which ones could decline if any more news comes out. There is also a further risk with this. So some of the ground rents are also linked to the Retail Prices Index, which is a UK measure of inflation. At the moment, they have not been labelled as illegal or taking advantage of the consumer, but they could be. The CMA have said that they're looking into these, and that could be a further risk for these developers and others. This obviously could cause further stock declines and losses. So this might be a good chance to buy into these house builders if you're bullish about the industry, if you miss the COVID lows and you're really looking for an opportunity to buy. Although you have to be comfortable with the fact that you're buying in because the opportunity arose from rather unethical practices. And And while they are claiming that these practices have stopped, it's by no means certain that they have. That would take a full investigation from the CMA, as is undergoing now. On top of that, the CMA does have the ability to issue fines if they find these companies guilty. Now, I haven't seen this discussed anywhere after a pretty thorough search. Possibly it's not relevant in this situation. I might have missed something. But I'd say there is a slight risk of fines here. Obviously, these have been quite predatory practices. They've earned a lot of money for third parties, a lot of money for the house builders, because they've been selling on those revenue streams at a higher cost than their original money they would have got. So say you're getting £500 a year per flat, maybe they're charging 3 times, 4 times that revenue stream forever. It's probably more than that, but you get the idea. I personally am going to be removing my very, very small positions in house builders, not because of this, but because I was doing that anyway. That's been the plan for a week now, just because I'm freeing up capital to move around and invest in more value stocks. I think personally this will get sorted out. If you want to buy in, I'd say Taylor Wimpey is probably the best bet at the moment. There's more certainty around it because they've taken more steps than the others. But the risk of a legal battle and future investigations could have unpredictable effects on any of the share prices. And it's really difficult to predict how a legal battle would go, if the companies are even willing to enter into a legal battle, or whether they'll just settle. It's really difficult to predict. So I'd say, while this might be a good buying opportunity, I'd take it with a pinch of salt. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how widespread the problem is. Obviously, they estimate about 100,000 homes, but it could be a lot more than that, especially if they're looking at predatory sales practices. So yeah, it's really uncertain. It could end up in quite severe or some form of fines. Difficult to know. So I would just keep an eye on this risk. It's definitely something to think about before you invest in any house builders, well, these 4 especially. But yeah, that's just my opinion on it. Thank you for listening to this video. As usual, this is not financial advice. Please don't take it as financial advice. Talk to a financial advisor and use your own opinion, your own research for investing in any stocks. And please check out my other videos and subscribe. Thank you very much for listening.